are officially starting. Okay, now I'll need the screen share, please.
Coming right up.
So, welcome to the class, Be Your Own Therapist. This was an original thing that Lama Yeshe said a long time ago when he was trying to encourage us as Westerners to look more deeply into the Dharma, not just to sort of take it because it's been told to us. And that follows very much on the theme of Buddha Shakyamuni, who said, don't take my words I say just because, I'm called the Buddha or something. Like if you had a piece of gold, you would check up and make sure that it was really gold. You would cut it and polish it and things like that. So the same thing with the teaching. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche always was very, very clear that he wanted us to basically be very, excuse me, I'm just letting my dog out of here. Wanted to be very clear that we actually thought about the teachings. So my name is Jhampa Shaneman. I am an FPMT registered teacher. I am the permanent resident teacher of FPMT in called Central Ranch and Sangbo in Mexico, and although I'm a Canadian. And I first met Lama Yeshe in 1971. I became a monk shortly after that, and I was a monk for 14 years. And then since then, I've been involved in the Dharma, always in different Dharma centers and such. So we're going to take refuge and the other prayers, but we should always have something that we're doing it towards. If, let's say, when you say a prayer, there's something in front of you that inspires you. And although, we say refuge, which is going for protection, strictly speaking, in the more Mahayana flavor, we would be saying, I'm taking inspiration. And so Buddha Shakyamuni is a big inspiration, and all the great masters after that are great inspirations. So Buddha Shakyamuni in front of us, around him various other monks and nuns and yoginis and such. Then to one side, and using your imagination, then you'd have some Dharma texts and such. And so there you have Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. The Buddha, the Dharma is the Dharma text, and the Sangha is just all of the other all the other monks and nuns and whatever else. And then, although you don't want to make your mind too crazy, too cluttered. So there's that. And then you're supposed to include all sentient beings. So, wow, that gets really massive. But I would say more than anything, just say that you have a sense of connection. For example, let's say if you have a job and your job is supporting your family. Well, when you go to your work, you're actually working for them. And even though you don't think about them per se at that moment, what you're doing is for their benefit. It's for them to have, to pay the bills and to have the house and such. So just like that, when we attend this teaching, we should have the idea that I'm doing it for the benefit of all sentient beings. And even though we don't visualize them, we can have that feeling. And if you want to be a little specific, then it should be father on the right side, mother on the left side, relatives and closer family, friends behind you, and people that you find difficult in front of you. Now, one thing I always like to point out is that when you take refuge and we say all sentient beings, we include all sentient beings. Well, why and how? I would say almost all the sentient beings don't want to be a Buddhist. So why am I suddenly making them all Buddhists? No. What we should try to think of is that all sentient beings want happiness and don't like to suffer. Sentient beings use many techniques to be happy. Some of them are skillful and some of them are unskillful. So how can you include all sentient beings in the prayer is by thinking that all of us want to be happy, whether it's an insect, a mosquito, or just a dog, a cat, whatever. So all of them want to be happy and don't like to suffer. And so when we take refuge, we're taking refuge in intelligence, in the Dharma. If you're again familiar with refuge, Buddha is the inspiration, the Dharma is the real practice, the real protection, and the Sangha are our friends that support us. So when we take refuge with the idea of all sentient beings, we're thinking all sentient beings want happiness, don't like to suffer. They need to have skillful technique. May I help them understand that? And, I can empathize with them. that they all want to be happy. So with that thought in mind, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create by teaching the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Short mandala offering. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and moon. I imagine this is a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. O holy and perfect pure Lama, Guru teachers, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of the Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Nirtayami. Okay. So this is called a Be Your Own Therapist. And so that puts a great context onto the teachings that we're going to do tonight, because as Lama said, check up and think about it, make the teaching your own. So for example, I'm going to go through some of the stages in the graduated path, and I'd really recommend that you memorize at least the key titles of the graduated path for your meditations. And if you were to be a resident teacher or a teacher in FPMT or something, graduated path is precious. It's the way that you present things, but it gives you the evolution of our practice. So for example, if we look at the precious human, first, of course, is the gurus, but I'm not going to touch on that right now. We're going to start off with just the precious human rebirth. And so precious human rebirth, I like to think of it this way, because one of the teachers I held called Tara Rinpoche, he was the head of the Gyutom Tantra College, I believe. Anyway, he was one of my teachers. And he said, use your imagination and give yourself some enthusiasm, some energy about what's happening. So, for example, if you won a lottery, like a $1 million lottery, okay, so you just have the ticket. So let's just say here, I have my lottery ticket of $1 million, okay, in my hand. All right, that, like, how would you feel? You'd be like, wow, and this is, you haven't even gone to the bank yet. You just got the ticket. You say, wow, I'm so excited, And why? Well, it's potentiality. When it turns into money, and then you can start spending it, and you can give some money to your family members, pay off debts and loans of everybody, and things like that. Then you can do some nice things for maybe the community. I don't know, maybe you need $10 million if you're talking those terms. But the thing is, you can certainly do a lot. And it's potentiality, like, wow. So when we talk of precious human rebirth, I like the analogy of that, hey, I just won the lottery ticket of a really good rebirth. And so I feel excited. Wow, and the emotion of the lottery ticket win, which is just totally mundane, but we have those emotions. Wouldn't it be great to have, $5-10 million? You could do all sorts of stuff for your family and maybe some stuff for the Dharma center that you're in or something. Like, wow, no problem. You have lots of money. Okay, so the point being then is that, okay, I have all of this potentiality. I have this thing. Okay, now that's the emotion you want about your life. Wow. Because normally, it's like, oh, poor me, and I've got this and I've got that. Maybe I'm old, I've got pains in my body, or, this, or I've not got much money, or I can't go to the Dharma center. All sorts of things could be there. But what you want is the thing, no, hey, I got potentiality. I won the lottery ticket of a perfect human rebirth. Okay. Now, the next thing, though, is that, like, again, because there is in the teachings, Buddhism can be quite manipulative. When you think about it, have you taken advantage of your precious human rebirth? Every moment it's slipping away, your life getting shorter, have I taken advantage of my precious, like that? I don't know. And again, it works for some people that you lay a guilt trip on them. But the thing is, I would rather say, like, it's not like if I had won the lottery ticket tomorrow morning, I wake up and get out of bed and think, oh, I have to go and spend some money. Oh, it's going to be so painful. You wouldn't have that mind. You'd be like, wow. This is when you first, win that, you can do all sorts of good stuff. Later on, maybe there's going to be problems because, in having lots of money, all of a sudden people become your friends who were never your friends. There's a great story of Lobsang Choki Gyaltsen, who wrote the Lama Zopa, the Guru Puja prayer that we do, and also the section of the Song to the Dakinis. It's okay, I can do it in Tibetan. I can't do it in English off the cuff. Okay, he was in meditation in a cave. And when he came out, all the Dakinis were in front of him singing this. And then they go, ah, la, 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 ho, ai, ah, ra, li, ho. So our song of the bliss in the Tsok of Lama Zopa comes from a visionary experience of Lobsang Choki Gyaltsen. Anyway, later on, he became famous and he became the teacher for one of the Dalai Lamas. And again, I'm not good on quoting all the details, but let's say that he became that. And then, so one day he hosted a dinner for all of his family members and such. And so they all came and they sat at the table and they're all drinking and eating, because he got rich, he was a tutor for the Dalai Lama. So he could host a big party and it all get paid for and things. So finally he, at a certain point, he took a bag of gold or whatever it would be and dropped it on the middle of the table. And then he says, I make prostrations to this bag of gold. Because of this bag of gold, all of you have befriended me, because when I was a monk and practicing so seriously in the mountains in a cave, none of you even remembered me. But now that I'm famous, you all remember me. I make prostrations to this bag of gold. So, it's important to sort of, anyway, I was making a joke about being rich, but when we have the initial moments, we have all this excitement about the things I can do. So it's like in the morning, you don't get out of bed and think, oh, gee, I'm going to go spend some money. I won the lottery ticket for Perfume Rebirth. So go out and do some stuff, say your prayers and be excited about it. That's the two key things that I like, that I use for me in my meditation. I'll actually share a sort of small story. I have a student in one of the cities here in Mexico. And he had juvenile onset arthritis. And I guess if you're not familiar with that, he was like 18 and suddenly he got stiff in the joints, and he was 19 and then 20 and then paralyzed. His limbs started to get frozen up and things like that. So when I met him, he was about 21 years old and he was very angry. He was really pissed, like my life, I'm 21 years old. He'd been in a band. He'd been able to play guitar and stuff, all sorts of things. He had this world in front of him, and he got juvenile onset arthritis. And so suddenly he can't do those things. And so he's angry. So he came to the Dharma class. And one of the things I taught was this about the precious rebirth. And because it was a physical class with people, not like Zoom, I gave out everybody a piece of paper that said, I won. Okay. And everybody got it. And then I gave the discourse I just gave now. And then having done that, then he went home and he took it, and I guess he had his sister do it. She glued it to the ceiling right above his bed. So when he woke up in the morning, he would see his little ticket that said, I won a perfect human rebirth. And he got more inspired about life. He stopped being sort of poor me, and he started to be happy and stuff. And then a little later, he actually met somebody that he married. He's fathered 3 children with that woman. Incredible, and he got over his poor me and started to do things. And he's done incredible things. He used to be my translator sometimes too, in Spanish. So point being is that that's precious human rebirth. Then if we move over to, let's talk about the graduated path to enlightenment, precious human rebirth, which you could do the 8 and the 10, and I'll let you figure out what they are in case you haven't figured them out. Okay. Then there's impermanence, death and impermanence. And then there's the 3 rounds the three major topics and the three subtopics like that. So the 9 rounds of the death meditation. Again, sort of try to be aware of that. Then there's 3 lower realms after that, but I find that's, again, for Western audiences, it's not appropriate, or it's not necessary. It has a point, but then we can skip that. So then you go to refuge, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, things like that. Then you go to karma. Then you go to dealing with delusions and such. And then you move into, that's the middle path, dealing with delusions. And then you have the greater path, which is the bodhicitta, and then the 6 perfections. Now that's the general topics, and you can memorize a little bit more, and you get the other ones, and try to go through and just enumerate them all, because that becomes very beneficial for you. That in your practice, how you're working with yourself. Okay, so death is definite, the time of death is indefinite, and what helps at the time of death. And I like to think of it in terms of this, like this. All of us, none of us remember our past lives. At least I would say 99% of us. I don't even remember our past life. Okay. But I'm experiencing things by the way that person acted, by the karma they accumulated. And so right now, I am creating the karma for the next one in line. But they won't know me. They won't know my name. They don't know where I live. No, nothing about me. But if in this rebirth, I fix the things that are problematic. Like maybe I have difficult relationships. In fact, none of them ever really worked. Okay, well, that's karma. The previous person did the same thing, obviously, because you have that sort of karmic way of interacting. Like you try to be successful and you're not. Okay, well, there's some karma. Okay, so that's one. Then you can shift over to possessions. Sometimes we have trouble with our money and possessions and things. Well, again, the previous rebirth didn't do much generosity, didn't create prosperity. Then we move to the next thing, next one in line, which would be, okay, my body, I feed it so well and I exercise it and I do all these incredible things with it. And yet it's going to kill me in the end. It's my death. My body is the thing that's going to kill me. So what we think then is that, okay, the next person in line is not going to know who I am, but I can send presents to them by the way I act in this rebirth. So if I have rather unsuccessful relationships here, well, let me at least try to be better at that. And at least in the next rebirth, that person's going to have, better opportunity to have maybe a successful relationship, maybe a Dharma person in their life or something. Okay. With possessions, be generous. I mean, we're not going to have to be incredibly generous, but the main thing with generosity is a sense of prosperity, that there's prosperity. I can do a lot of interesting stuff. And so have that feeling of prosperity in who you are, what you're doing. Then with your body, I mean, yeah, take care of it, bathe it and put creams on it and whatever you need to do, feed it nicely, but do it so you can live a long life and create a lot of good karma. And then at the end of your life, you can feel good. Hey, I did some good stuff with my body. And on top of that, then you sent all these presents to the next rebirth. And maybe if they became a Buddhist, they would say, thank you so much to my past rebirth. It's an interesting thought. I mean, like you are the recipient of the previous rebirth's activities to some extent, not totally, but to some extent. So if things didn't go very well, you can say, okay, well, the schmuck didn't do very well, so damn it. Okay, well, I'm going to do better for the next one in line. Okay, so that's precious human rebirth. Or sorry, that's that's precious human rebirth, but that's with using impermanence in a sort of an interesting way that I'm going to die. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Remember, Buddha is the inspiration. Now, in that regards, I really like to think about all the past rebirths of the Buddha. Not that I need to know the details, but I bring that to mind. And what I do is I think in terms of this, that the Buddha has gone through 3 countless aeons of rebirths, okay? 3 countless aeons of rebirths. That means he's been everything. He's been a human, a man, a woman, a cat, a dog, a monkey, an elephant. I mean, if you read some of the Jataka tales, I mean, it tells all the different stories of the Buddha. He was a monkey and he was an elephant and he was a bull and he was a human. And there's all these stories. But what that means is that the Buddha experienced all of those with bodhicitta, that he did something with himself to improve himself, to go beyond this sort of the mundane life that he was. So when you look then at for example, all the rebirths the Buddha has, and when Buddha became enlightened, he could remember all those rebirths. So what happens then is that when I have, feelings, faith, inspiration from the Buddha knows me. I mean, knows me from my situation right now. Me, Jhampa, this, living this type of life, trying to make the Dharma work or whatever. He knows me maybe if I'm single, because he had that rebirth. He had 3 aeons of rebirths. So what I think of so much is that where is the Buddha's compassion for me? Well, it's said to be spontaneous. Again, if you do a lot of details on studying the enlightenment of the Buddha's actions are completely spontaneous. Well, what would be a cause of spontaneous compassion? Empathy. And how would we then say, how can the Buddha have empathy for me? Because the Buddha is the Buddha. No. For Buddhism, the Buddha practiced over 3 countless aeons, finally became fully enlightened. And so, and enlightenment had the full memory of all of those rebirths. And so when the Buddha turns, so there's actually, so if the Buddha put his attention to me, he immediately could empathize with rebirth 3,257,000, where he was a guy like me. Okay. And so therefore he has true empathetic compassion for me, whether I'm married or divorced or have cancer or whatever might be my situation. The Buddha had those experiences. So for me, that's a huge source of inspiration of the Buddha understanding me. And so when I turn my heart and my faith and my practice to the Dharma, to the Buddha Dharma, to Buddha, I have that sense of connection about it. So it's really good. Then if we shift over to Dharma, well, Dharma is basically all of the techniques. And I mean, think about it, it really is just full of incredibly good techniques. And that's the Dharma. Now, some techniques are necessary. Some techniques maybe we don't need to focus on, but they're all excellent things. 84,000 Dharma teachings of the Buddha. So those are all to help us deal with our delusions, again, something good. And then finally, the community, those people that help us on our path as we go along, trying to accomplish things and such. So there's our Buddha Dharma Sangha, our refuge. Buddha is the inspiration and why I feel some sort of a devotion to him. Or her, if it's a female Buddha. I mean, there's Tara and all sorts of female Buddhas. That's 1. Then 2, Dharma, the teachings, and 3, the community. Okay, so that's the refuge. Then there's karma. Well, if you don't like, I really like the concept in karma that if you don't like it done to you, don't do it to others. There's not like, the Buddha decreed thou shalt not kill. The Buddha didn't say that. The Buddha said, if you don't like to get killed, don't kill. If you don't like your things stolen, don't steal. If you don't like having an unfaithful partner, don't be unfaithful. If you don't like being abused, don't abuse. If you don't like being lied to, don't lie. If you don't like to slander, or if you don't like to be slandered, don't slander. If you don't want to waste your time, don't gossip. So that's the basis of morality in Buddhism. Again, it's so realistic. And all of this really is exactly what Lama Yeshe said is be your own therapist. Recognize what's going to be working for you, what's going to be the best. Okay, anyway, so there's karma, and then there's all the different rules of karma. I mean, karma is definite, the 4 things, which are good to memorize. Those ones are really important to memorize. Karma is definite, karma increases. If you don't do it, don't expect the result. And if you do nothing about it, it will finally ripen. Okay, karma is definite. Be positive and you create causes for happiness, potentially. And that's really important. Or if you be negative, you'll create causes for suffering, unhappiness. And why I say be important, because you need to be intelligent in your motivation. Let's just say, oh, I want everybody to be happy, and you give away money. Well, maybe that's not going to be used properly or whatever. Not that you need to be conscious, but you need to think about, okay, what's intelligent? What in having a good motivation, be intelligent. Does it really work for this person? What's the best thing to do? Just having good intentions is very good. It's very important. It makes you feel nice, but you need to exercise intelligence. Anyway, that's point number 1. Karma is definite, and make sure you use intelligence. Second one, karma increases. Now, often I've heard it said, like, if you kill a mosquito and you have no regrets, it's equivalent to killing an elephant or something like that. I don't know if that really, that sounds a bit mystical. Whereas I could say, if you start to do something a little bit, it's easier the next time. It increases. And so let yourself slip a little bit on your morality or your ethics or your principles about your life. And then it's a little bit easier to slip again. And it's a little bit easier to slip again, And so that's sort of the karma increases from my point of view. And that one works for me. Like, don't just do a little bit of something and think, oh, that's okay, I don't need to worry about that. No, you don't want that. You don't, because it's going to get easier the next time and the next time. That's point number 2. Number 3, if you don't do it, don't expect the result. And then the easy one for that is, if you don't buy a lottery ticket, don't expect to win a lottery. If you don't create generosity, if you aren't generous, sharing prosperity, don't expect prosperity to come in your direction. So again, they say, but the point is, if you don't do it, don't expect the result. That's, I think, really worthwhile, because sometimes you think, okay, what am I not doing? Am I not meditating? Well, I want to meditate, but no, I don't find the time to. Well, then don't expect the results of meditation, which is just actually mindfulness nowadays. I mean, all the benefits of mindfulness, your memory will improve, your focus will improve, your ability to deal with stress will improve, your actually immune system will improve, your body will be healthier. That's scientifically, in research, so all of those things have been proven. On top of that, actually, your brain will change a little bit, the actual physical matter of the brain. Even if you're 60 or 70 years old, if you start to meditate, there will be changes in the structure of your brain, maybe a little bit. But if you meditate a lot, I watched a neuroscientist presenting something on mindfulness. They said, even if it's only like a 1/10 of a millimeter in your brain, that's huge. That's billions of channels, of nerve channels in your brain. Anyway, so meditation does all of that. Okay, so the long and the short of it is that the 4 points of karma, okay, karma is definite, but be intelligent. Karma increases, so to just be mindful of what you're doing. If you don't do it, don't expect the result. And if you do nothing, it will ripen. But then you can turn that around and say, if you do something, it will be purified. So let's say you killed something when you were young. I mean, all of us were young at one point. Maybe we killed an animal, maybe we hunted or we fished or something like that. Well, so potentially that would then be, we cut that being's life energy, killing a fish or something like that. Okay, so we cut their life energy. So that means our life energy will be damaged, whether in this or a future rebirth. Okay, so if you then do prostrations, or maybe you do Mani Padme Hum mantra or something like that, really feeling great compassion to the things that you killed and hurt or something like that, that purifies the karma, that changes it. So what could have been cancer in a future rebirth suddenly is just you stubbed your toe because you changed the dynamic of that karma. Anyway, so there, I'm just going through the graduated path, but I'm trying to make it in really practical terms, which is what Lama Yeshe wanted. Be your own therapist. How would this work for you? How do I make it work for me that I can believe in it? Okay, so that's karma. Then we move to dealing with delusions. Now, there we have, bottom line is actually, if you understand that you are not independently self-existent, your wisdom is a thing which will diminish your misunderstanding, and it also will then stop the anger and the attachments. Okay, so that's sort of a progression of how that works. But in the Bodhisattva path, it says that first we should focus on the phenomenal universe is not independently self-existent. Okay, if you recognize that and you get very familiar with, for example, like an example right now, like we're sitting in a room full of atmosphere. Okay, just move your hand back and forth and you can feel the atmosphere get out of the way. We're no different than a fish in a fish tank. It's just our medium is really thinned. Take a breath. Well, you took a breath because you're in a medium. You're in the medium of the atmosphere. We're no different than a fish in a fish tank. So start to try to make your mind see that, like to live that. I'm not like just sort of Jhampa, highly independent. I can get up and leave this room and I can do what I want. And you don't tell me anything because I'm independent. No, I'm not. I'm continuously 100% interdependent, not self-existent. The temperature of the room I'm in right now, it's affecting me. Actually, here in Mexico, we don't have central heating. Yeah, that's why I got a jacket on because it's getting cold. Okay, so I'm interdependent with the atmosphere. I got to wear a jacket when it gets cold. Okay, anyway, so that take a breath. I am immersed in the atmosphere. I am not independently self-existent. And you can even go deeper in that because one thing is the Tibetans, they didn't have a lot of education. They weren't public schools in Tibet. And I mean, nowadays there is a lot of, there is education for the Tibetan refugees, and there is education in Tibet because of the Chinese system, and they all have to learn Chinese, so there is education now. But my point being is, all of us, we're fairly well educated about our body, that our lungs and our heart and the muscles and the diaphragm and veins and arteries and all the details. It's stuff that's pretty common knowledge for all of us. I mean, we can watch a YouTube video on it if we want. Okay, so when we take a breath, we understand that there's tissue in our lungs which is going to take the oxygen and give out the, I don't know, whatever it be, the gases that don't give us life, the used up ones anyway. Okay, I've never remember, anyway, carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide, I can't remember which one. Okay, doesn't matter. So I say I'm not all intelligent about everything, but I at least know that when I exhale, it's going to be the used up breath. Okay, so I inhale. The tissue of my lungs is not independently self-existent. It absorbs the oxygen. The blood in the tissues is not independently self-existent. It absorbs the oxygen. That then is interdependent with blood pressure of my heart pumping away, creating pressure. That moves that from the tissue down through my heart, of course, into the heart muscle. There's all that oxygen that's put to keep it alive. Otherwise, you have a stroke or you have a heart attack, isn't it? Kills some of the muscle of the heart. And then it goes down through your body. Every organ in your body is not independently self-existent. It absorbs the tissue and such, or absorbs the oxygen, absorbs the blood. I mean, it's things. So even with just sitting there breathing, you can get such a good sense of, I am not independently self-existent. Such an easy meditation, just breathing meditation with intelligence. Or, with, you could say, without ignorance. But the actual, again, I think I talked about this the last class I did for your group, is the actual word in Tibetan is ma rikpa, which is ma is a negation, rikpa is intelligence. So not intelligent, ma rikpa, and intelligent, rikpa. So I think the word ignorance is not appropriate. The better word is understanding. I don't understand, I understand. That'd be a correct way to translate that. And although ignorance does work, like I am ignorant of something, ignorant doesn't have the, within the actual word, the possibility of knowing. Whereas in the Tibetan language, ma rikpa, I don't understand, rikpa, I understand. All you have to do is remove the ma, the negation. So I understand, I don't understand. Or understanding, not understanding. I mean, it's not quite the same as the Tibetan language, but the thing is, it works better because I don't understand means I can come to understand. Anyway, so as I was saying, in the Mahayana tradition of bodhisattvas, you first should focus a little bit more on the not self-existence of phenomenal universe. And in the analysis the analysis, it is said that your body is included with phenomena. And then that's the first aggregate. The other four aggregates are your mind. So if you're doing an analysis of reality on phenomena, your body is included in that category. And then if you do this breathing meditation I just described, you can start to realize that you're just a sponge in the ocean of atmosphere. And although we only have a couple of holes where the air can come in or the air can go out, still, we are like a sponge in the ocean. And if you put a sponge deep down in the ocean and you squeeze it and the thing, it goes, you get this idea. It's not like the sponge lets the water penetrate it and come in and out of it through all the holes. Okay, well, that's us right now sitting in this room. We are interdependent. Take a breath. Okay, I am getting better understanding of phenomena. Okay, then you shift it over to your mind. Now, in the middle path or the middle scope of Buddhist practice, you mainly focus on the delusions. But as I said, in the Mahayana tradition, looking at it being a bodhisattva, it said, if you start with phenomena, you have a better guarantee you won't end up with a nihilistic point of view, that I don't self-exist, anyway, like that. So starting off with your body, then when you move to your mind, you can say, my mind is completely interdependent. My mind is not independent, self-existent. So how is my mind? Well, if we look at the key functions of your mind, you have language. Okay, well, how do you learn your language? You didn't pop out of the womb saying, hi, mom and dad, and whatever language they were in. No, you came out, you didn't know how to say anything, and were interdependent with them saying, oh, our darling little baby, we love you so much. And you slowly learn language, like that. And then you improved on that by going to school, by being interdependent with school and such. So you have education. You were interdependent to be able to be proficient and understand what I'm saying right now. Then you can shift over to your emotional life. Your emotional life, it's not like, depending on how you're brought up, you can have good and negative situations. Maybe you were traumatized a little bit, or maybe you weren't. Maybe you had a great loving mom and dad, but you have people in your life, and that's where you experience love. I mean, as an adult, it's not like you're suddenly I'm full of love. No, you have to meet somebody, be interested in them, and then you fall in love. And then you have all the feelings of love. Or the best one is, especially if you've had children, joy. You do not experience joy unless you have something happening, unless you're interdependent. Joy of maybe a niece, a nephew, a grandchild having some success or something like that. There's joy. Or, giving a present to some child and watching them light up, and then you feel, wow, that feels good. That's joy. So you need interdependence for that, for emotions. And then for example, your body. Well, your body continually needs interdependence with the air you're breathing, with the food you're eating, the fluids you're drinking. You are 100% interdependent. So point being is that when you look at yourself, body and mind, the first aggregate and the other four aggregates, or in the analysis of reality, that you end up with appreciating everything as interdependent. Nothing is independently self-existent. Then, if you then look at the I don't understand, I am interdependent. Then, for example, anger. I'm going to get angry because I didn't get what I wanted, or I see something I don't like, Okay, so actually, again, in the Buddhist analysis, anger is just a bad technique. It doesn't give us what we want. It's a technique, getting angry and trying to dominate somebody or yell at somebody or whatever. It's a technique to change a situation, but it's not the best technique. Using intelligence and talking with somebody or whatever you need to do, okay? That's, again, you are appreciating that you and this other person are interdependent. I have a chance to influence them. Anger is not going to be the best way to influence them because they're going to end up disliking me. Maybe they just get defensive, or maybe they get aggressive themselves. No benefit. Okay, so I'm interdependent, my body's interdependent, my mind is interdependent, this other person is interdependent, their body, their mind. Okay, I would like something to be better. I don't like the situation. Well, may I exercise my interdependence on their interdependence? I can influence them. They're not a closed system. Now, again, there's certain things which are really complicated. I mean, for example, Russia right now invading Ukraine. That's really sad. We can't really accomplish a great deal. We can try to support, that the lessening and the diminishing and the stopping of that war. But again, that's maybe too big of a thing to try to accomplish. But at least with ourselves, our own anger or our attachment. Attachment tries to isolate something. It's just ours, But again, that phenomenon only exists because of interdependence. So again, you sort of diminish the isolation and the exaggeration of a phenomena that you're very attached to by appreciating its reality, and then you diminish your attachment. Anyway, so that's the middle scope, which is basically an analysis of reality and using your wisdom. Okay, then we move to bodhicitta. And that's actually, if you use the analysis I suggested in the middle path, in the middle scope of the spiritual practice, analysis of self and others and such, then you already have a very, very good basis for bodhicitta. I live in an interdependent universe. And so therefore, why would I work for myself alone? His Holiness Dalai Lama often uses an example. If you had scales and you put your one little body on this side and you put all Sentient Beings on that side, who gets the weight of the thing, And although, that doesn't mean we have to be totally self-sacrificing, but it does mean, hey, appreciate we exist for so much interdependence with other sentient beings. The house we're in, it was built by others. Thank you very much. The electricity we're experiencing, thank you very much to others. The food in the stores, thank you very much to others. Often it's called gratitude. I don't really like that word. I just think appreciation. If you start to have appreciation for all the sentient beings that you are interdependent with and who support you, in whether in a dramatic way or in a subtle way, you change your attitude. Okay, so the first is that just that we all want happiness, none of us want to suffer. There's the 7 points of attitude transformation, and then there's the 5 points of attitude transformation, which are part of bodhicitta. Again, if you memorize the key things, okay, precious human rebirth, things are impermanent, refuge, karma, working with my delusions. Number 6 is bodhicitta. And then bodhicitta, you have the 5 techniques, the 7 techniques, and then you get the 6 perfections. That's the standard sort of presentation of the graduated path to enlightenment. But the really good thing, and this Holiness Dalai Lama also refers to it this way, he says, all sentient beings having been your mother is a little bit difficult, more complicated. All of us want happiness and none of us want to suffer. The disadvantages of being egocentric, the advantages of being receptive to the fact of your interdependence with others, love, compassion, and then bodhicitta. Those 5 steps are really are much more, let's say, logical. They seem to be a thing. Now, the one thing that's unique with all sentient beings having been your mother is actually the feelings, which you would have to some extent in the 5 techniques, but in the 7 techniques of the 6 causes and 7th result style of all sentient beings have been my mother, the great kindness and such like that. The actual thing, if you look at the effect on you, what you first have to do is you first focus on your own mother. Now, providing your mother was a reasonable person, because there are sometimes very difficult sentient beings, but providing she was reasonable, then you go through all of the things where you say, okay, wow, she got pregnant and she was like, wow, I'm pregnant with you, and stuff. And she was totally focused on you. It said, no one has thought as much about you than your mother. Even if you have the most incredible lover in your life or something, they don't think about it as much as you as your mother did, and they don't think about it the same way. Your mother was totally devoted to you. Nobody's thought about you as that much. It's incredible. But then you have to go through it. You have to sort of start to work on it. I remember when I attended the first course of Lama Zopa in 1971. It was in March. And it was the very first one. There's about 12 of us attending in that. And he mostly talked about the 3 lower realms. But in there, he did touch on, mother sentient beings. And so I thought, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. I'd never heard of this teaching before. Wow, such weird stuff, 3 lower realms, the hot hells and the cold hells and the intermediate hells and all of this, that was famous for that. But anyway, he then did touch on mothers. And so I started going through, my mother. Yeah, my mother was a nice lady. She was an artist. She was pretty interesting woman, Wow, yeah, my mother's nice, And then I finally hit this particular experience of every day, my mother would take my shoes that I would have to wear to go to school, and she would clean them and put them just beside actually our waste paper basket that we had, there. And I suddenly got that image, and every day my mother would clean those. And I went like, wow, I don't do that for anybody. I'm so selfish. And my mother just out of love for me. And it really broke me up. I really wow. it was, I don't know if you, in your part of the world, you had salvage shoes. A black shoe that was like with laces, and they're called salvage. I don't know. But anyway, that was the type of shoe you wore when you went to school, the early, like it's the 50s. Yeah. Okay. I'm born 1950. So 1956, 57, 58. Anyway, so that like I suddenly went, wow, but what happened is I had this feeling in my heart of incredible love for my mommy. Like, wow. And that's the thing that's beneficial with this particular evolution of the 6 steps and the 7th result is you touch love. And you touch love with a very, very powerful object, your mother. Because then you go into the kindness of your also means your mother, the kindness of them all and such like that. But if you don't start off with your own mother and really touch on some times when she maybe really sacrificed herself for you, you won't really get the feeling that there's really the key point, the spark that creates the fire of you really having a deep sense of love. And I guess the easiest example I can think of is that maybe in your neighborhood, there is one woman, a little bit big woman, like, heavyweight, like that. But she was the best woman in the whole neighborhood for giving cookies and hugs to the kids, full of love. I mean, it's like a big Italian mama, like that. Okay. I'm just making it up. But the point is that like, and just full of love and things, just that, well, that, it's a very nice person to know in your life. But the thing is, you need to touch that love within yourself. And you need to do it through finding something. And your mother is one of the best objects for that. So that's the 7 steps style, which is good in that case, which I just mentioned, that you will actually touch heartwarming love and a very authentic one, your heartwarming love for somebody that thought about you more than even you think about yourself, that woman. Okay, so then you do that, and then you end up with the wish that may I work for the benefit of all sentient beings. And of course, because we're all interdependent, why wouldn't I like try to make the world a better place? So you do that, and then you go into the 6 perfections, the generosity, principles or ethics, patience, enthusiasm, wisdom, and finally, meditation, and finally wisdom. Okay, so that's where I'm going to stop actually there. It's 50 minutes worth of presentation. And all they did was cover the graduated path, but maybe in a little bit of a different way. But I want to make it real for you, as Lama Yeshe said, make it so that that you appreciate it as your therapy for yourself in a real way. You really like believe in it and stuff. Okay. So that includes the presentation for tonight. I guess thank you very much for all of you who are attending, especially Lou in Southern Florida. Hey, we're interdependent, Lou. Even though we're miles away from each other, we're at least in the same latitude, down a nice warmer part of America, world, Mexico. Anyway, so that includes that. I'm going to do dedication prayers, I guess.
Oh, one thing before we do that, I want to thank you for that. Give presence to your next life, and thank your previous lives for the presence. That's just such a unique way of looking at it that I appreciate that a lot.
Good. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. For me, when everyone said work for your future rebirth, it never worked for me very much. But when I put it that way, I think, it really works well. Okay. Anyway, it's time I quit. I've got a time schedule on things. So, okay. So with for the interdependence of us all, for gracias for the Buddha Dharma Sangha, thank you to the Buddha for his interdependence with us. Dharma practice. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all sentient beings without exception to that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase it more and more. You who uphold the subdeva's moral way, who serve the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjushrie's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished the magnificent prayers honored by the 3 jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. Okay, so we can stop there. Actually, Dalai Lama, sorry. We can stop there. It's okay. So thank you very much, guys. Take care. Be good.
Thank you.